Hi, I am Samyogi. Today is October 8th, 2025. Welcome back to the Krishnamurti podcast. This is episode 74, and we are discussing the seventh talk at Ommen, the Netherlands, which happened on August 5, 1933. Question for jkrishnamurti. You spoke of a child who was told of reincarnation when asking about death. The child was weeping at the death of a playmate. What would you have done, or what would you have said to it to help it understand? The reply from Krishnamurti is, what I am going to say sounds so absurdly simple that I hope you will understand it. I personally would tell that child, look at a flower, it withers and dies. I can say it because I am not afraid of death. It is a natural thing, inevitable. All things must wear out and die. Because one is afraid of death, one is not able to face it simply. I am not talking of accepting the inevitable. We all do that. That is a foolish way of looking at life. So if you are not afraid, you do not give complicated reasons such as reincarnation. What can the child understand about reincarnation? You think it understands it because you yourself feel satisfied with that idea. If mommy is satisfied, then I must be satisfied with it. You pass that atmosphere of satisfaction, and the child, being very sensitive, takes it on. So what causes you to be afraid of death? Because first you say, I do not know what life is beyond. And you say that because this life has not been full. You are concerned with what lies beyond the grave and hereafter. Only when this life has not given you its richness, its plenitude. If this life is rich, if your single day is immense, complete, then you are not afraid of tomorrow, but you look to tomorrow when today has crumbled. In reincarnation, there is ever death. There is ever a beginning and a death. That idea does not really free you from fear. You momentarily postpone. That is all. You may be united with your friend, your lover, your brother, or anyone, but there is still death. You are satisfied with that idea because it momentarily gives you satisfaction. So, as it gives you satisfaction, you pass it on to your child, to your neighbor, to anybody else, because they are all wanting satisfaction. And so they all take up your idea, and so you have created a wonderful society, organization in which all believe in reincarnation, and you think you have solved the problem. I am not sarcastic, but I am just showing you that where there is that idea of reincarnation, there must also be a death at the same time. Therefore, you have not really understood. You have but escaped. What creates fear of death is incompleteness. And incompleteness is not overcome by an idea or by following a pattern or living to a certain set of standards. When the mind is free of all these standards, there is understanding of right values. Then there is a complete act. And in that act, in living completely, which is action in infinity, in that there is no beginning or end, and then you are not afraid of death. You see, you cannot explain all this to a child. If I were a very small child, I would talk to it about the flower and show it to him or her, and as it grows up to discuss it, awaken its own intelligence, not push down your ideas on it. You see, one must have an exquisitely pliable mind to understand truth, a very subtle mind, for wisdom is very swift, and to follow it you must be unhampered, and all incompleteness which creates memory is hampering, is a limitation, and such a mind cannot understand. So you will know what that deathless becoming without an end or a beginning, when you are living completely. Do not say, is that all, or will it lead me further? If you are not completely living, then you will ask, is that all, or will it lead me further? Then your day is not rich or simple. Then your act is not complete, because you are always looking to further things. Because you are always looking to further things. Your action is merely then a means to an end. Such an action can only be incomplete. Whereas if you live completely in action, then you will not be afraid of death. Then reincarnation becomes a very small thing. You know, if you are living without that sense of I, which is the discovery of right values, then you are no longer limited by time. Now we are limited by time. There is yesterday, today, and tomorrow, not a thing which is complete, which has no beginning and no end. That timeless becoming, or that becoming in which there is no time, in which there is not the division of the past, present and future, you can only understand when your mind is free from all choice, because choice creates opposites, and in true discernment, which is not born of opposites, there is a timeless living reality. So the answer ends here. There are a few observations I made while reading this. One was, he talks about life and death in terms of reincarnation. He says, what creates fear of death is incompleteness, and incompleteness is not overcome by an idea or by following a pattern or living to a certain set of standards. So pattern or standards means, he means by pattern a certain pattern, certain living, certain values, some standards which society imposes on you. It creates in you a pattern that I must adhere to these values or standards set up by society. If you do that, then your action is not complete, because the values that society may set are not, as Krishnamurti says, the society is like immoral. The morality of society is immoral because of obvious reasons. We allow wars, we allow exploitation of man by man and things like that. So it doesn't mean that you revolt against society. It even though Krishnamurti says in other books, other talks, that you are already in revolt with society and stand alone, when you understand that the values set by society are not up to the mark. So I'll let you ponder over this point, whether you should revolt or plow along. There is a middle path also where you maintain the status quo but challenge the status quo. That is also there. Now, he also says incompleteness is overcome by an idea, and this is also a revolutionary thinking from Krishnamurti. Normally we have an idea. When you go to a VC, venture capitalist, you will say, what is the idea? And based on your idea, he will fund your business for a startup. Just an example of how powerful an idea, decides how much funding you will get. But Krishnamurti says the idea limits action. If you have an idea and as per that you act, then it becomes limiting. It becomes limited by that idea. Your action becomes incomplete. That is what he means when he says, when the mind is free of all these standards, there is understanding of right values. So the values impinging on you by society is not complete. The right set of values only you will know, and you will discover that by looking at the entire picture, the society, yourself, your role in it, and what you can do in terms of transforming yourself. And as you do that, you transform society. Now, he also talked about he did talk about the swiftness. He said, for wisdom is very swift, and to follow it you must be unhampered, and all incompleteness which creates memory is hampering, is a limitation, and such a mind cannot understand. So how is memory hampering? How is it a limitation? So you'll have to look at the last episode 73. I'll just repeat that a little bit. One of the questions was, should an experience be remembered until it is understood or not remembered at all? So here we are talking about memory. Krishnamurti has replied, you cannot forget an experience which you have not understood. It remains. But if you have understood a thing, it is over. The mind is free to face life afresh, anew. It is experiences which have not been completely understood that create a barrier, that give the mind a jaded memory which prevents you from living each day afresh, anew. So it is not a question of remembering or not remembering a particular experience, but it is meeting all experiences afresh with open frankness, and you can only meet an experience fully, openly, freshly when your mind is not seeking a result, or when the mind is not shaped, molded through consistency, born of memory, through limitation. So it's a related set of things. Limitations like ideas, like fear, limit action. And he did talk about remembering a particular experience prevents you from meeting all experiences afresh. And in today's answer, he said that memory is hampering, is a limitation, and such a mind cannot understand. So you will have to reflect on this, on what kind of memory you should carry and what kind of memory you should discard. So memory which results in technical knowledge, that is there, and that is your skill, and that is useful. For example, my skills on the computer for bringing out these podcasts is a skill, is a knowledge to which I continuously add other knowledge. So in that sense, knowledge is not a hindrance. But if you make knowledge to be sacrosanct, for example, in India they have the philosophy of Vedanta, which says I am Brahman, and those who have gone to those classes or listened to those lectures think that they know, but actually they do not know. That is the hallmark of Krishnamurti, that he questions it. Not this specific knowledge, but he questions all knowledge. And in a dialogue with a group of people, he has said this, that the ascent through knowledge is the destruction of man. The ascent, in the sense, he means by ascent, the psychological ascent, that I am the higher self, that becomes destructive in learning about what you truly are, which is you are nothing, not a thing. Now you will have to understand that if you are not understanding it, I encourage you to listen to more talks and videos on Krishnamurti. There is also the Krishnamurti podcast from I think from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you search the Krishnamurti podcast on YouTube or on Spotify, you will get to those. Those are sometimes good, and sometimes there are short videos, 10 to 12 minutes, they are good. So the last thing I wanted to touch upon was this timelessness, just so that we can reflect on it. He says, if you are living without that sense of I, which is the discovery of right values, then you are no longer limited by time. So we are limited by memory. The past is always acting. That is one aspect of this. He says, now we are limited by time. There is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Not a thing which is complete, which has no beginning and no end. That timeless becoming, or that becoming in which there is no time, in which there is not the division of the past, present, and future, you can only understand when your mind is free from all choice, because choice creates opposites. So we have gone through this choicelessness in terms of I must or I must not. I am writing a book. I must write this or I must not write this. So that creates a conflict. So in choiceless awareness there is no conflict and there is true discernment. So he says here, and in true discernment, which is not born of opposites, there is a timeless living reality. And he also talked about infinite action in this talk. In this answer, he said that living completely is an act of infinity. His words were, then there is a complete act, and in that act, in living completely, which is action in infinity, in that there is no beginning or end, and then you are not afraid of death. So it's in a sense timeless. There is no beginning, no end. And when he talks about completeness of action, I have repeated it and I'll say it once more. He talks about barriers or hindrances. He alerts us to barriers like prejudice, tradition, authority, security, fear, postponement, which all these are hindrances to completeness of action, meeting life in its fullness, acting completely, acting without incompleteness, making life complete, making life, you can say, whole, making life a life of fearlessness. Fearlessness again is not the right word. A life without fear, and a life full of ecstasy that comes in timelessness when these hindrances, barriers have been understood. Okay, the podcast ends here. In the next podcast, which will be episode 75, we shall discuss the 8th talk at Ommen by Jkrishnamurti, and that 8th day has a talk followed by questions and answers. Thank you. You have a wonderful day.